even if you have so much money, it doesn't necessarily mean it's important. Like, that's not for us to say. So I think like a couple needs to decide, like, do we want to set our money aside for a child? And I don't think the answer should be an automatic yes. I think it's a conversation a couple should have.
Yeah, for sure. And I feel like that's how we normally start off the conversation, because a lot of times partners have never had the conversation, more so the conversation of like, how much do we want to fund for higher education specifically?
Welcome to Money Dates, the podcast that makes money conversations with your partner feel a little less taboo. I'm Natalie Slagle, a certified financial planner, and I'm joined by my husband and business partner, Dan Slagle, also a certified financial planner. Say hi, Dan.
Hello.
In each episode, we'll share honest stories and practical tips to help you and your partner feel more connected and confident on your financial journey. So grab your drink, get comfortable, and join us for our Money Dates. Hi, Dan.
Hi, Natalie. Okay.
How are you?
I got to tell you.
We're getting to it.
Yeah, we're getting right to it. I got to tell you a story.
Okay.
It's not really a story. It's just something I experienced this week. I was meeting with a client and a lovely couple, a little further along in life than you and I are. And they're having a graduation party on Saturday.
Oh.
Before we had a child, I was like, graduation party, like, oh, free food. And I just remembered, like, actually, I didn't even have a graduation party, but I remember that, like, time of life of, like, going to, you remember, like, friends' parties, and you try to, like, batch, like, 3 or 4 in a day and get all the free food, hang out.
The walking tacos.
Yeah, I feel like you need to explain real quick what a walking taco is, because there could be, like, a segment of this country that has no idea what a walking taco is.
I don't believe that everyone has to know, because they're so great. If that has been deprived from folks, then that's really sad. So a walking taco, you have a bag of chips, which we could have a whole episode on which bag of chips is for the walking taco. And I have a very strong opinion about this, but you have a bag of chips, like the fun size, not like the huge bag of chips, but like the personal size bag of chips. And you just throw taco stuff in the bag. So it'll be usually like kind of gross ground beef with the gross taco seasoning, lettuce, tons of sour cream. Like, you think you did enough and you need to do one more scoop of sour cream and cheese. And that's a walking taco. I got very passionate about this.
You did. I wish I had the same, like, my metabolism as when I was 18. Because as you were 3
walking tacos.
Yeah, as you are so pumped up about walking tacos. As you were talking about walking tacos and describing it, I'm like, this is disgusting.
Mm-hmm.
Like, now in my mid 30-year-old self, like, I'm happy I say it's disgusting. But it would sound good. I think you went a little heavy on the sour cream. Like, you don't need that. Like, you went a little heavy on the sour cream, and that's kind of where you lost me.
Anyways, Dan, are you a Frito or Dorito?
Hold on. We're getting so off topic. I was telling you a story.
Oh, yeah.
I'll answer that at the end of the podcast.
Okay, fine.
Doritos. Okay, there you go. All right. Oh, I was meeting with the clients, and they shared that their daughter's having a graduation party this upcoming weekend. And that hit me a little different now that we have basically a 1-year-old.
I know. Yeah. Well, how did it hit you different?
Like, I can't imagine the feeling now of, like, sending your child to school and sending them away. And I just asked them, like, how are they feeling about it?
Yeah.
They were like, they started off by saying, like, oh, we're really excited. Like, you get an extra room back in the house, get more free time. Mm-hmm. And then after they started talking, they were just like, it makes us actually really sad.
Oh my God. It makes me sad for them and our future. Yeah.
So that's the story I wanted to share with you, because in summary, like, for me, it was like it actually being present in a moment of conversation around, like, we've raised this child, the child is going to go to school, they're going to be on their own. And, like, that's like it, right? Like, of course, kids come back for holidays, and when they're older, they might
Mhm.
move back in with you. But it just feels like this huge monumental step. I think we should talk about it today. I think we should talk about like tying it all together. Does it make financial sense to save for our kids' future and education?
Let's talk about it.
Let's do it. Let's do it. Because I think it's such a big topic in conversations with our clients. And now for us, right?
Mm-hmm. And it's literally, because we do have clients at all different kind of ages of the spectrum. We have clients who have launched their kids into adulthood and they're doing great. And then we have a lot of clients who are having their first or second kid like right now-ish. And it feels like the second they have a child, I mean, and it's kind of like our job to bring this up, but we're like, do you want to talk about all the different financial strategies on saving for your kid? And well, we usually don't ask it that way, right? We're like,
yeah,
we just ask like, how do we even ask it? It's kind of a question of how important is it to you to save for your children's education? Because it's like we want, you got to have that discussion before you even talk about, well, can you afford to? Because we want our clients to save for themselves and make sure that's set up before we think about saving for the next generation.
Yeah.
I think just like, is this important? Because even if you have so much money, it doesn't necessarily mean it's important. Like that's not for us to say. So I think like a couple needs to decide, like, do we want to set our money aside for a child? And I don't think the answer should be should be an automatic yes. I think it's a conversation a couple should have.
Yeah, for sure. And I feel like that's how we normally start off the conversation whenever we have education, like on our agenda, right? It's like, because a lot of times partners have never had the conversation or understanding of like more so the conversation of like, how much do we want to fund for higher education specifically? And like just posing that question to clients brings up a really good conversation. Because oftentimes I feel like we hear, I'm going to throw out percentages, and it's usually on a scale of like 100. We want to fund 100% of education. Mm-hmm. We want to fund 50% of education. We're somewhere between like, I don't think we've ever had a client say 0%. Like I truly don't, but that's an option. I would say on the low end, maybe like 5 to 10% is like some numbers that we've seen.
Yeah. We want to do something, but we don't want to just like screw up our finances because of it.
Yeah. And I feel like you want to provide like some context into why partners may choose to fund 100% of education versus like 50% versus maybe that 10% number.
Yeah. I mean, there's the percentage that we talk about is derived from the inputs that we utilize, that we're making assumptions over for our clients and then for their expected college costs. So none of us know, like, honestly, like we don't actually know what the numbers are going to be, but the numbers that we utilize is a 5% inflation rate. It used to be higher.
Even before we get to like the numbers.
Oh, yeah.
Like, I don't even know if you and I have had this like true. I feel like we may have like in our sleep deprived early stages of our daughter mm-hmm. and like making contributions to her education account. I feel like you and I are in the camp of like, well, if we can fund as much as we can, we should, right? Maybe closer to that like 100% mm-hmm. figure. Yeah. And I feel like that comes from a place of you and I both had student loans.
Yes, we did.
And not wanting to have our daughter go through that. And again, who knows what education is going to look like in 18 years, but just making decisions off of what we know today. Like, I feel like that's why you and I are on the higher end of that scale of like, if we can afford to fund it, then we absolutely will do our best to do it.
Yeah, you're right. It did start with a conversation of, well, is this a priority of ours? Do we want to put funds set aside to a 529 plan? And that was a vehicle. We haven't even talked about all the different kinds of vehicles, but that's the vehicle we have started with for Jay. And the answer was yes, because there's so many thoughts about like student loans. We also had skin in the game. Did that impact us to try really hard because we knew we had these loans? I don't know. Or did it impact us in a way of like, we would be a little further ahead if we didn't have all these student loans we had to pay for? And maybe you and I are having a better conversation about this now, because I remember us talking about it, and it was when she was really young. So I don't even remember the conversation because we probably were working off of 2 hours of sleep. But I'm kind of under the mindset, Dan, like me, Natalie, is kind of like, if we could afford to help her, why wouldn't we?
Yeah, I agree. And whatever like percentage, which we'll get to here in a second, like explaining those numbers, but like in whatever percentage of like being fully covered for college, that means, right? Like, and some clients may choose 50% or 20, 10%, whatever it may be. There's reasoning behind it. And it's about having that conversation with your partner. I mean, this is a conversation that, like, who would think to have this conversation? Like now, when your kid is 1 and you have 18 years to figure it out with, I'm sure some people just take like future bonuses or just like dumps some excess bank savings into like a education account, and they just call it good and they just see what happens, right? So I think it's just about like this conversation, like being a little more proactive, like very proactive, actually, if we think about like for us, like 18 years in advance. But there's a reason why it makes sense to have this conversation sooner than later.
Yeah, there's financial benefits and tax benefits.
Yeah.
So do we want to talk numbers now?
Yeah. So once you have that conversation with your partner, again, that's something that we love guiding clients through the discussion and really collaborating with them to come up with a solution. Once you kind of have your like figure in mind, right? Like we want to then show you, what does it take to do it? Like what actions do you need to take today to be able to say you're going to fund 100% of education costs 18 years from now? So some data, some numbers that we utilize. Our financial planning software gathers average tuition costs from collegeboard.org. So I'm going to throw out some numbers. Public in-state 4-year tuition in today's dollars, $29,910. Public out-of-state 4-year tuition, $49,080. Private 4-year school, $62,990. So let's use those.
And that's 1 year.
Yeah. So let's use those 3 scenarios. That's 1 year, and that's in today's dollars.
Yes.
So whenever
when our daughter goes to school in 18 years.
I'm about to share what that number is in total. Ooh. So whenever it comes to education, we use an inflation rate of 5%. So meaning the numbers that I just laid out, depending on the path that your child or maybe you're going to go on, compounds 5% every single year.
And I will, I think this is important. When we use inflation in lots of different facets for our clients' financial plan, their retirement projections, and 5% is a high inflation rate. Because we also inflate salaries, we inflate expenses, like spending, your just household expenses. So 5% is high, but that's what we have seen. When we look at historical data, it's a valid inflation rate.
Yeah. Yeah. Compared to like spending or salary increases, we're usually somewhere around like 3%.
Exactly.
Let's go back to our daughter. Let's use her example. So she turns 1 at the end of this month.
Oh,
which is crazy.
So many feelings.
Oh, we should add to the list of what we talk about here with 529s. We should add the Ugift code.
It for our daughter.
No. Sharing. Anyway,
we want listeners to contribute to our daughter's 529 plan.
No,
I'm
not
gonna stop them.
Nope, I'm gonna stop them. You cannot do that. Thank you.
Oh, fine. Okay.
All right. So she turns 1 at the end of this month. I ran some numbers. So we have this like really nice platform that shows everything way more beautifully than just me talking about it. Her total college costs between 2042, so the year she'll be 18, and 2045, So 4 years of college. If I just took public in-state 4-year tuition, which again, in today's dollars, $29,910, her cost for 4 years of school, it's going to be $295,477.
AKA 300,000.
All right, we'll round up 300,000.
Wow.
For 4 years in total. That's not like per year cost. That's the total cost for 4 years. That's crazy.
Interesting.
That's crazy. We have to remember we're looking at future dollars, right? So the idea that your income, savings rates, like hopefully match something close to that. But that's, I don't know. That's just insane to me.
Well, what happens alongside, and this is what has been happening, is salaries have not been increasing at the rate that college has. And so that's like why we're in the dilemma that we're in, is because parents' affordability has not been able to keep up because their salaries haven't been keeping up. And I remember my dad telling me that he paid for his own college. His parents didn't save any, like, I don't even call when the 529 plan existed or came about, but his parents didn't set aside any money. He's one of 10, so I don't blame them. But he paid for his tuition by working at Dairy Queen. We cannot work at Dairy Queen while paying for tuition. We as in like the general public.
Dairy Queen in like the 70s and 80s though, like prime.
Yeah, he talks about how like they used to have to always do the flip to like prove it's, I don't know, solid. And then that went away. And then I think Dairy Queen got sued over that. Anyways, the world is different on being able to afford tuition via cash flow. Because via cash flow, there's a lot less families out there who can afford to do it, who can afford that sticker price of 30 grand a year. If your kid goes out of state or goes to private, you got to essentially double that. So, man, that is hard.
Yeah. Which is why we bring up the conversation so early, right? Like, let's get rid of the shock. Let's show you we have a lot of time. And then we're not just showing the numbers to like scare clients at the end of the day. Like, we're showing clients that number to say, like, what can we do today to make this possible? And it's hard to believe like just some minor changes, as long as you can maybe cash flow some extra savings, redirect some of your savings and where it's going. Making minor changes today like allows you to hit that percentage goal or get somewhat close to it, right? So we're trying to tie everything together. So, based on our daughter's 529 balance right now and an assumption of $5,000 additional savings per year, like that gets her college costs 98% covered.
And $5,000 a year, we can come up with that.
Yeah. And we're in a fortunate place to be able to come up with that, right? And I think a lot of our listeners are as well. It's showing like the impact, because remember, we inflate it at 5% college costs every single year. If we can have it invested, maybe more oriented to how stock markets have performed historically speaking, you're looking at somewhere between 7 and 8%. Now, I can't guarantee that, but that's historically what we've seen. So you're beating that 5% inflation, right? That's like the beauty of the education of the 529 account, which I think you'll explain here in a second, is you're allowed to invest the money and let it grow. So understanding like, when you're 18 years away from education, like there's a lot of growth potential within the investment based on historically what we've seen stock markets do.
Exactly. Yes. So our clients will select a 529 plan, and 529 plans are state sponsored. So it's not like if you're at Schwab or if you're at Fidelity, you can't just be like, okay, Fidelity, let me open a 529 plan. That's not how it works. They're state sponsored. Now, usually you can go to any state, but the reason why I'm bringing that up is because it has to do with the investment. So every state sponsored plan has their list of investments. And you and I go into, we'll first look at whether or not the client should go with their state, because for multiple reasons, they might not want to go with their state. And we go into that website and that investment options, and we select the investment. And, you're talking about this, and I'm like, I don't think like that is such an important choice on the investment itself. So you select the 529 plan, and then you have to select the investment, because hopefully, and what is ideal from a balance perspective and from a tax perspective, and I'll talk about that in a second, you want your investments to outperform the inflation that we're assuming. And in order to do that, you need to select the right one. So it's a really, really important decision. So I just wanted to emphasize that. Do you want me to talk about like the benefits?
Yeah, I feel like we've been talking about an education plan and mentioning the 529, but we haven't really talked about it. So I think it would be a good opportunity to talk about it.
Okay, great. So the 529 plan is, again, it's state sponsored. Not every state has one for the most part. And so you can just look up like, what is my state's 529 plan, and open an account. And then you're going to link your bank account to fund contributions. Okay. Now, those contributions that go into the account are with post-tax dollars, because it's in your bank account. So you've already paid taxes on it. So you put it in with post-tax dollars. Let's say you put in $5,000. And by the time you take it out, I'm just going to use simple low numbers for now, but by the time you take it out, it's worth $8,000, right? So you have $3,000 of growth in the account. Now, if you had it just in your brokerage account, that $3,000 you'd have to pay taxes on, right? And depending on what your income is, it's going to be 15% or higher. Lots of depends on that, but we're just keeping it simple. Instead, with the 529 plan, the benefit is that you don't have to pay taxes on the earnings if it's utilized for qualified education expenses. That's where the power comes in of the 529 plan. Because if you are putting money in a plan, like Dan, in our example, if we try to fund 100% of Jay's education and our balance needs to be $300,000, we're talking hundreds of thousands of dollars, right? And there's likely going to be a significant amount of that balance that is growth. And if we didn't put that in the 529 plan, we would owe thousands of dollars of taxes on that growth. But because it's in the 529 plan, and then assuming it's utilized for education expenses, we don't have to pay taxes on it. That's powerful.
Yeah. Your example, the 5,000 turning into 8,000, I'm like, dang, that like gets her a burrito in 18 years. Based on the numbers we're sharing. But anyways, all jokes aside, I think, the growth component is so important. Again, as long as we're using it for qualified education expenses. I feel like the IRS just came out with like some new legislation like not too long ago that we've been talking about a lot with our clients, and clients have been bringing it up as well. Do you want to talk on that a little bit?
Yes. So the Secure Act, which I feel like that came out around COVID. I don't have the exact year, but it's been out now for a little while. Let us, as in parents, know that unused funds up to $35,000 can be rolled over from a 529 plan to a Roth. So a valid concern about the 529 plan is maybe my kid doesn't go to college. Maybe they get scholarships. Maybe there's been things that Congress has been creating to help create. It's important that there's some boundaries here because they want the funds to be utilized for higher education, but they also don't want to penalize parents who did make, I would say, the right decision to save ahead of time, right? And so one of the ways they're creating some more flexibility is saying, you can roll over in today's dollars. I really hope this inflates. But again, it's kind of a newer rule. So we'll see what it means for our kids. But you can roll over $35,000. It's $7,000 over 5 years. That's how it works. You can roll over up to $35,000 from your 529 plan to the child's Roth IRA. Now, if Jay didn't need all that and she was able to do it, starting your young adult life with a $35,000 Roth IRA, that sounds pretty great.
It sounds amazing. Yeah, it sounds amazing. And like families with 2 or more children, you can always change the beneficiary on the accounts, right? So I know there's some specific rules within like how the Roth IRA transfers in that case. But like generally speaking, if one child didn't go to school or they didn't need all the funds, well, you can change the beneficiary to the second kid, assuming that they need access to the funds.
Right. Yeah. It used to be like some people would be like, I'm just going to have one 529 plan. I have 3 kids, so I'm just going to have one, and then I'm going to keep changing the beneficiary. But now that there's this new rule with the Roth IRA, or that you can transfer it, it actually does make sense to have a designated 529 plan for each child, but you can still kind of front load the first child if that makes sense. So that's kind of some of the things that we kind of help evaluate for parents, is how much to put in each plan and making those decisions going forward.
Yeah, super helpful. And then as far as like, I know there's some state tax benefits to making 529 contributions as well.
Yes. So every state's different. So I don't have time right now to go through each one of them, but some states offer a deduction based on the contribution. Some states, if your income is a certain amount, they'll actually give you a credit. These are going to be beneficial on your state tax return, not your federal, because you don't get federal deductions or credits for 529 plan contributions, but your state might. In some states, it's like over a $15,000 deduction. Like, it's significant.
Colorado is.
I don't remember.
I don't remember off the top of my head, but
it's worth looking up, whatever your state is, to look at that benefit. And even if you don't own this is for the grandparents or friends or whatever, even if you don't own the 529 plan, your state might still give you a deduction or a credit if you contribute to your friends, your nieces, your grandchild. Like, if you make a contribution to a 529 plan, but you don't own it, you could still get a state tax benefit of some kind for that 529 plan contribution.
That's fascinating. I know we have to wrap it up here shortly, but I did want to go back to the Ugift code. And some listeners were hoping I was going back to the walking taco conversation, but we're gonna go back to the Ugift code. Do you mind sharing a little bit about that code and how we personally use it?
Yes. So the Ugift code, I see it with a lot of different 529 plans. For our 529 plan specifically, what it allows for is essentially an easy contribution from people who want to contribute to the plan. So you generate the code. You'll have to go to your 529 plan's website and just look for something about a Ugift code or outside contributions, and then it should lead you through all the prompts. But it creates this code, and the code is really nice because it gives you essentially this like website that you can then send to your friends and family to make a contribution to the 529 plan of your child. And it doesn't show them all the details of your 529 plan. So they'll have no idea what your balance is. They won't get any of the personal information, but it will say, this is the name of the beneficiary. The beneficiary is the child. The owner is you. Like, we got to put a little picture of our daughter's face to really like amp up the feelings around making the 529 plan contribution. So it's like, for us, I've kind of like, instead of, when Jay's birthday is coming up and I'm like, we should be sending this. I haven't done this. This is a reminder for myself. Instead of letting people just give her these crappy toys that she's going to use for 2 months, we should be proactively sending that link to the grandparents, to the aunts and uncles, and say, hey, no obligation, obviously, but if you want to contribute or get something for Jay's first birthday, the gift that keeps on giving would be a 529 plan contribution. Here is the Ugift code to make that happen.
Yeah. It's a really powerful tool. I love sending it to family and friends around her birthday because, to your point, like, I don't love the idea of just collecting things to collect things that she'll get rid of. And maybe I'm biased because of my profession. We've always brought this up to clients, like once they open the 529, right? And I feel like our clients share similar values to us, to like what's important, and would highly recommend sending that over to family and friends. Absolutely. And one more thing before we go. This actually happened to me earlier today, Dan. I was pulling up our balance sheet and I was looking at it, and I pulled up our investment accounts, and in that listed our IRAs, our 401ks, our brokerage account, and our 529 plan. On all of those accounts, the lowest valued account is Jay's 529 plan. Rightfully so, it's the newest investment account.
But looking at that number gave me the greatest satisfaction. Even though our retirement accounts have much bigger balances, looking at that 529 plan, I was like, wow, look at what we're doing. That's a really good feeling. That is financially and personally very satisfying.
Yeah. Well, thanks, Natalie. Last question I have is, how much do you think a walking taco will cost in 18 years?
I bet it costs $134.
That's ridiculous. Okay, I'll see you next time.
Thanks, Dan.
Bye. Hey, if you've enjoyed this episode and are looking for personalized financial guidance, schedule a free complimentary consultation using the link in the description below. Natalie and Dan Slagle are the founding partners of Fuse Financial Planning, a registered investment advisor. The information provided in this podcast is for informational purposes only and should not be considered investment advice or a recommendation to buy or sell any securities. Investing involves risk, including the potential loss of principal. Advisory services are offered to clients or prospective clients where Fuse Financial Planning and its representatives are properly licensed or exempt from licensure. For more information, including our disclosures, please visit our website at www.fusefinancial.com.